Normally, people who I've worked with before, I tend to have a lot of handouts. I didn't have the time to get it all together today, so some of this is going to look a little slipshod, but that's okay. It's not a formal lecture. It's a class. I mean, a workshop. You guys are going to do the work. But the basic question is, especially after what happened in San Bernardino, is how do we politically be against policing, even as we know that policing is structured as anti-black. However, the zeitgeist and the emotional, zeitgeist means like the spirit of the age, and the emotional kind of baggage that's in everybody's mind right now is that we are so unsafe right at this moment. We are so unsafe, and here are these little Negroes talking about getting rid of the police, and they're just going to make us more vulnerable. You know, I mean, my parents called me, 85 and 84. Like, are you okay, baby? Are you okay? I'm like, San Bernardino is like, you know, and they were just watching the whole thing as though, you know, the police were going to make it all right. So, how do we? So I think what the BSU, what I see your demand, you know, what I'm trying to do is help with. I hope I made enough copies. Here's some more. Thank you. What I'm trying to do is help you develop a kind of way of talking that acknowledges the danger that people are in, because that's what you're going to get hit with. You know, we need protection, and you can't say you're not in danger. But the question is that are the police the answer to that? You know, so that's number one. So what I hear from the demands that the BSU and Irvine has made is that against the police, because the institution is unethical. So if something is unethical at its very core, then it can't be reformed. So that's how we have to build. We have to build a skill set to not contradict people's sense of feeling unsafe, because we're all unsafe. You know, it's kind of a double whammy. Okay, it's bad, but you got to lock your door twice. You know, against the danger that you perceive to be could be mitigated against by the police and against the police. You got to lock your door against the danger and against the police. So, okay, so how are we able to know that an institution is unethical? And you can see where I'm going with this. The problem of being a revolutionary is that once you start to say an institution is unethical, and then that institution is inextricably bound with other institutions, you know, imbricated, like this is the meaning of imbrication, like bricks locked into each other. Bricks are imbricated. If that institution is imbricated with schooling, with the judicial system, with the church, what does that mean? It means those other institutions are unethical also. And then you have a situation in which you're ultimately making, from a simple gesture that the police are unethical, you've actually implied that everything is unethical. And I think that's a good place to be, but it's also a difficult place to be emotionally. It can be isolating. So one of the questions is how to, if you can make something your own, then you can live with the isolation that you feel, and it's not. It doesn't become isolation anymore. I remember that in 2000, when Jared Sex and I, he's a professor here, were grad students, and some 8 undergrads had been arrested in the Third World Liberation Front strike at Berkeley because we was supposed to be non-violent occupations of various buildings, and they became violent when the police interceded. Okay, so there were 2 blacks, 2 Latinos, and 6 people, and some other like Asian, white, I can't remember. But the point is that the blacks and Latinos were attacked in this sit-in, and one brother jumped up. He was pulled up by his dreads, you know, and as he was being pulled up, he tried to cold cock the cop, you know. So, wait.
Oh, I just said I see him.
But he was little. He was little though.
Yeah, he was about 5'3" or something like that, and he was one of the student organizers. And so what happened is that the entire coalition turned against those people because they got felony charges, and we had put ourselves in a trap. The general way, I was never down with this, but there were 1,000 people in the Third World Liberation Front strike at UC Berkeley in '99, and it went down to 250 through our decision not to leave these students in the cold, that we were going to fight the administration and the Alameda County judicial system to deal with their charges. The other 800 people were like, look, we had an agreement that we're going to occupy Barrows Hall. Come on, there's a seat right here. We're going to occupy Barrows Hall, and there's going to be no destruction of property, and there's going to be no violent response to the police. I thought everybody was bullshitting. You know, I mean, I thought that we were just like joking around making that. As it turned, and this is the shocking thing, because I just come from South Africa, and Jared was a grad student. But the shocking thing was that the undergraduate community was literally invested in that. You can't be invested in tactics to the expense of your comrades. You see what I mean? What you want in life is what's called tactical flexibility. In other words, tactical flexibility. I'll write this down. Which is to say that in order to get to the revolutionary goal, we have an arsenal of tactics, right? But we are strategically. Is there? I can't spell. I'm a professor. That's right. Yeah, well, hey, you know, I got a job for life, so it doesn't matter. Huh? Strategically rigid, technically flexible, and strategically rigid. So hopefully these series of workshops and the thing that you're doing on the ground will help you, because no one can teach you strategic rigidity. That's something that you got to feel in your gut. When we finally decided that we were going to shut down the Alameda County Courthouse, we had 250 people left from the summer of 2000, from 1,000 in May and 250 by the fall. Why? Because there was a large, I'm just going to say this and be recorded. Okay, how can I put this? Well, it doesn't matter, I'm recorded all the time. There was a large Chicano contingent, and they were down with symbolic actions. Statues of the Virgin Mary, hunger strikes, all that kinds of thing, which are cool as tactics, tactical flexibility, right? But we felt that the University of California itself was an unethical institution, and the hey, Sandra, just see here, the move to the agitation around the proposed dismantling of ethnic studies, so that's how it started. The agitation around the proposed dismantling of ethnic studies for the black students was an opportunity to push for a larger political confrontation with the university, and then we were trying to bring in people from Berkeley and Oakley and to be a part of that. And so what we found out in this whole process is that most of the students were really about reform, okay? We were bullshitting about reform. We were cynically about reform, so that when we got something, we pushed for more. And so that, and we hadn't done the necessary political work to figure out where everybody was at and how to struggle with people. And I think this is where the beauty of your struggle is right now, because you're doing that. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking for a minute, and let's everybody go around the room, introduce themselves, what they do, where they come from.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sandra, and I'm the co-chair of Black Student Union, and I'm a senior, and yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Samaje Garba, and I'm a 4th year PSB major. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I lived in Atlanta for a little while, and now I'm here.
Hi, my name is Amaya. I'm a 3rd year English major.
Kaylin, I'm a 3rd year sociology major, English minor.
My name is Sean. I'm the chair of the BSU at Cal State Dominguez Hills.
At Cal State?
Yeah,
Where?
Dominguez Hills.
Oh, okay.
I'm Shayon Falls, 3rd year at UCI.
I'm Kiki, 3rd year UCI econ major.
I'm Blaine. I'm a 4th year public health and African American studies major.
I'm Jasmine, freshman. I'm a English and Ed major, Latin minor. I'm Nicole. I'm a 2nd year BSU econ and social policy major.
I'm Carmen. I'm the chair of BSU and a member of UCI's men's team, Jungle Pussy.
I'm Aja. I'm actually a graduate from UC Riverside, here as with the U.S. Student Association.
What program are you in at Riverside?
Riverside? Well, I just graduated.
Oh, you
from
graduated.
Yeah,
You're
I worked for the U.S. Student Association though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Hi, I'm Tariq. I'm a 2nd year political science major. Hopefully, double major.
My name is Nick. I'm a graduate student in the Culture and Theory program.
Hi, I'm Sally. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of English, and I'm also the grad advisor to the BSU.
And I'm Frank Boderson, and I teach in African American Studies and the Drama PhD program. And I am also working with Sally as an advisor to the BSU here. Okay, so somebody help me with where I left off, 'cause I just forgot.
She said reform is bullshit.
In her first year here, she sat right here and like needled me every day to, yes, so I'm very happy to see you again. Why did all okay, so.
We just took Sandra's seat this year.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes,
I was
indeed.
put on as a freshman.
Yeah. Hi, I'm sorry I didn't make enough. Oh, please introduce yourself. We just went around and.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophia Brown. Thank you. I'm a graduate student in the Criminology Law Society program.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to say something for people who haven't been taking classes from Nick and Sally and who haven't been working with me. It's going to sound really, really strange, but please bear with this. I'm just going to say this, and we're not going to deal with it so much today. We are in a unique situation, and part of the problem of our situation that I'm stumbling through, I should just say it directly. When I say strategic rigidity, it's a very hard thing for us as Black people to deal with, because the meaning of strategic rigidity for a revolutionary of any other group of people is going to be really solid, like coherent, you know? In other words, my old professor, Edward Said, said, and I've told these guys have heard this 100 times before, but it's an anecdote that I have to use again. Anyway, he was working with the PLO. He was a Palestinian, and a faction, the guerrilla army commander of the PLO, put a hit out on him because they had an argument over whether or not the armed wing of the PLO should bomb Israeli children's school buses or not. And when he came back from the Congress in exile of the Palestinian Liberation Organization back to Columbia, I had heard about this, and I asked him about this after class, And wasn't he scared? He said, yeah. I said, wasn't he upset? He said, no, he wasn't upset. So why aren't you upset? He said, because Abu Nidal, who was the commander of the Front for Liberation of Palestine, the Armed Wing, and I are representatives to the Palestinian legislature in exile. And we had an argument on the floor over whether or not to do this. And I said no, and he said yes. But it was an argument over tactics. We agreed that strategically, what does it mean for Palestinians to be free? We agree on that. It means that there should be no more Israel, not we get a West Bank and Ramallah. There'd be no more Israel, and that what was Israel is a secular state for all people. He and I agree on that. So actually, we are ideologically on the same page. He says, I got a buddy who I hang out with, and in Lebanon, and eat breakfast with whenever I'm over there all the time, named Yasser Arafat, who runs the whole thing. And we are ideologically opposed to each other. My best friend, we're ideologically opposed because he's a reformist who will settle for a Palestinian squatter camp that he can put a little flag on. So, and he says, if you're going to be a radical, Frank, you have to understand the difference between strategic flexibility and tactical flexibility and strategic rigidity. Yes?
So, okay, I'm kind of confused, but
Yes.
I was confused at first, but I think I get it now. So strategy is like what you want on the whole, and then tactile is how you're going to get your goal.
Boom. What's your name?
Jasmine.
Jasmine, yes.
So strategy-wise is like getting rid of UC police, and tactile is how to do it? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, because even that points to a larger, the strategic orientation of a revolutionary movement answers the question, what does it mean for us people to be free?
Okay, so it's not police then, it's the institution itself?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And he
Okay.
was saying, we had a knockdown, drag-out fight in the legislature, the PLO parliament, over tactics. I'm doing this counter-hegemonic work on public radio in New York, and I'm trying to win hearts and minds, and he's doing this guerrilla warfare, and I said, you need to hit the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. You can't, because if you hit school buses and children get blown up, I'm in New York trying to do my counter-hegemonic thing, and that's going to make it hard for me to build international sympathy for Palestinians.
Mm-hmm.
However, our strategic orientation is the same. We are both revolutionaries against the state of Israel in total. We're not trying to reform aspects of it. My best friend is a reformist because he doesn't believe in being strategically rigid.
Okay.
He's going to go for the okie doke. He's going to settle for a piece of what we lost.
Okay.
So he said, this looks bad, Frank, because this cat might kill me. But if you're going to be a radical, you can't think of it like that. Because, so here we are. We are in a situation in which, not we're in a situation, you all have actually pushed the envelope. I mean, right now, if you go home, you need to look in the mirrors and say, I've just rocked the world. I mean, the university doesn't fly professors up there in big groups. I mean, they flew you up there because they're shit scared. Now you need to go for the jugular and take advantage of the historical moment that you have. And I'm not saying do this, do that. I'm saying the way you take advantage of it is building a revolutionary consciousness in this space that your activism has created. One way you start to do that is making everybody talk on your terms. Let me repeat that. Making everybody talk on your terms. Oh wow, I underestimated. So we're gonna get right into group work in a minute. Why the handouts? First of all, before I've been talking really fast, and I know that for some people that I've been in class with, some of this is old hat, but I want, everyone to tell me, as Jasmine did, if there are any questions before I make the next move. First, Carmen, if you tell that, I feel like my head is only being chopped off, and maybe the board isn't seeing it. It's not just my ego. You know, I wonder how it's going to look in the magazine if I can only see my like this.
I think people may not have known what you were talking about when you said that we were invited to, like, we were flown out somewhere.
Oh, okay. Well, Carmen and Sandra told me a few weeks ago that Janet Napolitano, who runs all the UCs, and also used to run Homeland Security. Think about that. There's a vertical integration of policing in the articles that you've written. That's emblematic of it, you know. I shouldn't be saying this because she's my boss, but, you know, so what? It's very interesting. So she invited all the heads of the BSUs to come up to, from 9 campuses, right? To come up to Oakland to talk. There's no such thing as institutions being interested in the discourse of black people. That's what makes us different than the Palestinians. The Palestinians have a beef. It's a text about their loss. You can write a sentence about it. We lost our land. You stole some of our culture. And the other side comes back and says, yes, we took your land, but we've improved your lives because we made the desert bloom, and it's better for you to get off your camels and go into Western society, you know. That kind of conflict, we would be in heaven if we had that kind of conflict. Because what would that mean? It would mean the other side has recognized and incorporated our demands, and we are interlocutors. We're in violent discussion with them. The problem that we have is that there's, I'm sorry, there's a lot of bad news here, but the good news is that you pushed the envelope, and that's why we're here, okay? The bad news is that there's no way, if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one to hear it, is there sound? That's the question of black speech. There's no way to be heard. You can't be heard because you can't be recognized as human. You get responded to when it looks like the mass of your bodies, the mass of our bodies, is going to cause some problems. So it's a kind of, we present the world with a sense of terror, but we don't present the world with a sense of fear. What's terror and fear? Why do I use these two words? Because terror is a kind of affective response to a threat that you can't even write a sentence about. Fear is an emotional response to something that threatens you, but you can concretize it. Black people terrorize the world just by walking around. And so now the world is in terror. And she invites you up. But there's no way, so that's an opportunity. Now it is not as some of us, and I went through this in my day. You know, I was chair of the BSU at Dartmouth College, about 150 years ago, but you know, I don't mind saying it, I'm proud of it, 1975, okay? And, you know, we had the same dynamic, and it's so painful to me to see every time we go through this, you know, we need to find a way to have, to act in a reformist manner because we're not strapped down. The objective conditions are not right for a BLA, Assad and Shakur move on the institutions. But that, because it's not right for that, doesn't mean that when we create openings for ourselves, we don't begin to theorize like that. You see? And so we were like, we had an opportunity in 1976 because it was the 200th anniversary of the American Republic. And as chair of the BSU, I said, here's the deal. The world will be coming to Dartmouth, all these rich alumni from New York and all these places, for these grand celebrations. You know, we need to get the Bose 901 speakers and put them all around the green where they're having these big tents and the catering and stuff like that, and blast James Brown's The Big Payback, was a song in those days, you know, and just destroy the joy of this day. And people were talking about, what does that mean in terms of us getting out and getting jobs and kind of, you know, I'm just like, oh my God, you know, and we really, the BSU, it was, and in those days you had to have 10% on campus. So we had 350 black people, and we had like a knockdown, drag-out fight in the basement for like 3 hours over this issue, and it split the black community in half. In half, you know. I don't want that to happen here, so we've got to find a way to hear the people who aren't ready to even think about this, and bring them on board, because they're scared that you're going to get some guns like Cornell did, like 3 years before I went to school, you know, and they went to the administration building strapped down with all these automatic weapons and took the president hostage. That's how they got Black Studies. Black Studies is born in fire, you know. So she invites you up there not because she cares about any of the issues. And if you speak to her with the issues and think you're being heard, you're gonna go for the okie doke. She's worried that what happened at Missouri could happen here, and they're trying to nip it in the bud. California people are smart. They know that the best way to deal with black rage is to accommodate it, to find the people who are willing to be discussants and bring them in and divide the rest of the community. People in the South aren't that smart. They just like front you, which is, I prefer that. I lived in South Africa for 5 years. I love the fact that white people walk around with guns on their hips and train their kids in karate and everything. And, you know, it was just beautiful aggression every single day. I never had to deal with this, but I'm sorry, you had a question.
Oh, I don't, it'll come back to me.
Okay. All right, so how do you, I said, Saeed, we're strategically oriented to take everything back. What does it mean to take everything back for us?
The world.
Yeah. This is the trajectory of your demands. Half the time we don't know that, but they know it. We don't know it, they know it. They know there's no way to satisfy a Negro. There's no way to satisfy a Negro. So what they have to do is find the ones that are going to be, you know, pliable, divide internally so that, you know, this doesn't happen. An institution is ethical along 2 vectors. One is diachronic, which is to say that it's history, the history of its development is an ethical history. Well, there can't be that possibility built on slavery and the genocide of Indians. It's just not possible. So, or if it's synchronic. Okay, so someone who has a handout, because I don't have one anymore, please read, Carmen, could you read the definitions of synchronicity and diachronic? Because what we want to do, you want to be able to look at everything as you move through the world with X-ray vision, so that you can see that synchronically and diachronically, this is ethical, or it's not ethical. And it means that you won't have any more friends, because, you know, people don't want to think that deeply. But, okay, go ahead, Carmen. What is diachronic?
A diachronic approach considers the development and evolution of a language through history. The world is built on the ancient Greek words, through and time. Historical linguistics is typically a diachronic study. A synchronic approach considers a language without taking its history into account. The word is built on the ancient Greek words with and time. Synchronic linguistics aims at describing language rules at a specific point of time, even though they may have been different at an earlier stage of the language. School grammar typically uses a synchronic as well as prescriptive approach.
Okay, thank you. So without taking history into account, without taking history into account, what that means is that it's like you're asking yourself about policing. How did policing get here over the years? Did it develop ethically over time? So that would be a diachronic analysis. Then synchronic would be like a Polaroid snapshot. Well, I'm showing my age. I did say 75 when I was I don't use Polaroids anymore. Anyway, it would be like a Polaroid snapshot, okay, just in the moment. The arrangement of power. Is the arrangement of power ethical? If the answer is no and no, and we're here because we think that it is no and no. If the answer is no and no, then that institution cannot be reformed. Which is, now my stupidity, when I was a grad student at Berkeley, and the story I told you about the people going to jail, my stupidity was that I thought, since we were all radicals, that we all got this. We were all down with this. That the demands that we were making on the university were cynical demands, were stopgap measure demands, that we were just making these demands in the moment so that we could get them off guard, get our shit together, and then move again on something else. But no, only 250 people out of 1,000 thought like that. That was really shocking. And what that said to me is that while we were doing the occupations, the agitations, and all that other stuff, we should have been doing more political education. We really should have been doing more political education, because most people were really seriously trying to make the University of California, Berkeley a better place. They did not see it as a killing machine. Genuinely did not see it as a killing machine. And the year before, I had just come from South Africa, where I'd done political education for the Communist Party and for various underground and above ground groups. And so everybody that I did work with in these kinds of workshops were all about destroying the state. I mean, there was no one in the room who was trying to reform the institution. So I rocked up into a situation that I, had seen for 6 years, since the early 80s. All right, so what I think we want to do is we're going to go over some of the material. Can I erase this? Yeah. Oh, yes. What's your name?
Kaylin.
Kaylin.
Is there like an example of an institution where diachronically it's unethical, but synchronically, like in the moment, it's ethical?
That's a really good question. I've never even thought about that. Huh?
I was thinking the same. Can it be yes and no?
Yeah. Or yeah, yes
Like
or no, or
like,
no or
say,
yes.
say, like if it was historically, if it developed in a historically ethical way, and then the arrangement of power right now in the moment is not ethical.
Or the opposite, yeah.
Or it was.
Or if it was unethical in the beginning and then it was
My
left
little
on.
brain can't.
Well, if you're saying that if something is fundamentally wrong,
Yeah.
then synchronically it can't be fixed. So you can't have yes and no.
As long as
I
you
mean, that's what I'm thinking. I'm not really sure. I'm kind of confused about this stuff, TBH. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So if you have the dichronic one, the synchronic one, it will automatically be no.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Well, I would think that, but is Kaylin?
Yeah.
I mean, Kaylin has kind of stumped me. So I don't. It's a.
Because like if the history of it is wrong, then is it always going to be wrong? Institutions. That's what I thought.
See, theoretically, something could correct itself. I don't know if it could. So can we all deal with really bad news and go on as good revolutionaries? Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't think anything can be made right towards black people. Okay. Now I've written 2 books about that and some articles, and I'm not gonna. And I know I can see the shock on some people's faces, but I would happily talk. I don't think we have the time and the capacity to. I think that the world is anti-black.
Yeah.
I don't think that there are spaces that are pro-black. But that's a complicated thing, because I think that in the lived experience of everyday life, you find some areas where you breathe a little bit more or a little bit less. But that doesn't mean that there's been that you found a fundamentally safe place. And when I say I think the world is anti-black, in fact, it's not so far off base. It's kind of messing my rigid program for today, but it's important to talk about. Here's the deal, Kaylin, right? In 1990, my daughter was 3 years old. We were in Johannesburg, and we were walking down the street, and it was apartheid area, and the police car comes running around the corner, and she's speaking Setswana. She doesn't have much words, but she has a few words in English, and the words in English that come to her mind, right, because she's not that fluent. right? She's fluent with her mother and so on. She says, she goes like this. And I said, what are you doing, pumpkin? And she goes, they'll take your money. It was very interesting. How does a 3-year-old girl know that? They'll take your money. I mean, it's just like a general anxiety about the presence of police, which told me that even at that age, she understood intuitively that there was no sanctuary for her. And I was, sorry you couldn't stay, but see you later. I was faced with an existential dilemma, because what does father do? Father says, here's how I provide sanctuary, and you know, only under certain conditions will this happen. And it just kind of dawned on me that there's no context. There's no context in which I have the right to protect this little girl, because there's no context in which I can protect myself. And there's a negative and a positive side to that. The negative side of that is that we are up against the world. The positive side of that is that when we decide to move on the world, nobody moves like us. That's why all coalitions want to steal our bodies and our energy for their project. Immigration, you know, certain kinds of reforms. You know, let's get some black people in here with some black energy, because black people are against the world, and when they get down heavy, you know. But then when we get our shit, we got to get rid of them. You know, because, you know, we are part of an unjust world, and we're trying to make it better with black energy. But when we become dominant in that unjust world, then we're going to have to like suppress blackness in the way that everybody else does. So we are without sanctuary, and we are without allies. So what we have to do is learn how to manipulate that situation. Because we're not without common sense, we're not without intellect. Right. And that's what we're doing. And we need to develop that. And as Jared said, you know, back in 2000, we have to be in the coalition with these folks, moving and ridicule them at the same time. It's okay, because I'm not for the Minutemen and keeping people out of this country. The country, you know, I'm not for the suppression of Native Americans or the domination of you know, lack of pay equity for white women and others. I'm for everybody's freedom, but I'm also ridiculing the lameness of their demand. They got some lame ass demands. Those lame ass demands. Sorry. Yeah. I once gave a talk. My dad's a big time professor in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But I'm bigger now. No. I told him that, okay? Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'll say anything to anybody says, here's included. He knows what I can do, you know. But anyway, at the end of my talk, I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Mine?
Yeah.
Aja.
I know you're laughing at me. Somebody came up in the auditorium about 20 years ago. I gave a talk, and a black dude about 65. He says, "You young Wilson?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What's your name, Frank?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Is your dad the vice president at the university?" He goes, "Oh." I said, "Yeah." Yes. "Oh." He goes, "You're pretty smart, but man, you're rough around the edges." So my edges have not been smooth, so but tough, you know. All right. Okay, so more handouts. Let me see what we got here. Okay, other did I answer? Are we okay to make the next move? Okay. Yes, Sandra.
I would like to touch upon about like the no need for allies, because I feel like a lot of people, like the people think there are needed when, like you say, like we are like without sanctuary. So like the momentary, like having them for the moment type thing, rather than needing them to be a part of our revolution.
Okay, say a little bit more. Why don't you give me a little story about a problem that I can, kind of grasp on that. Like, give me an example or something that.
Like for our demands, people come up to us and like, how can we be allies? And people will give people my contact information for these non-blacks, and like as a co-chair, sometimes I'm just like kind of like I ignore them because I'm not supposed to like straight up say like I don't fuck with you, but I think a lot of people don't know the danger, or not the danger, like how allyship doesn't really exist.
I see. Okay, so I think this is all really important. Can I erase this stuff here? Oh, thank you. Sandra, from being in class with me, how tangential I can get, so if I start going off, do like you normally do. Tell me to come back. Oh yeah, I mean, I've been knowing her, she kept me on my toes. I'm laughing, but it's like, I leave a graduate class in the morning, and I just like talk, and then I come in the afternoon to this room to undergraduate, and I talk like I was talking there, and Sandra was like the class ombudsperson, which is obviously why she's head of the BSU, because a lot of these people would be like scared for their grade or whatever, and they just let me keep talking, like not understanding what I'm saying. She'd be like, no, break that down. I'm like, break that down. Like, you're messing with my flow. This is my So, okay. So, we live, and this is all what we're talking about, we live in a regime of violence. There's a black regime of violence, and there's a subaltern. Subaltern are all kinds of people who suffer racial discrimination, gender discrimination, sexual orientation discrimination, post-colonial discrimination, etc. We're not black. These two things cannot be reconciled. That's why I said no sanctuary. Now, what we have to do, this is why Sandra's point is so important, is that intuitively we understand, just walking around, why the violence that structures our lives cannot be made analogous to the violence that structures the life of a brown immigrant, the violence that structures the life of a Native American, the violence that structures the life of a working class person. But everybody guilt trips us or puts this pressure on us that's saying that we're trying to be exceptional. We're not going along. We're not working with people, and part of the problem, in quotation marks, part of the problem with African descended people is our generosity. We have a generosity of spirit, we have an intellectual generosity. So we typically want to be compassionate towards everyone else's suffering, and then we get in a trick bag, right? And the trick bag is that we begin to forget that the regime of violence that saturates our life is completely different. And this is in the reading today, right? Our regime of violence starts with the Arab slave trade, and the Portuguese, and captivity. So our regime of violence is about a continuous reproduction of social death and captivity. Is that making sense? And this is how the police are elaborated for us. The subalterns, other people's regime of violence, is a product of them transgressing some type of discursive box that they got put into. The box of the native, the box of the woman, the box of the post-colonial subject, okay? Which is precisely why our regime of violence is, what's the word? Gratuitous. And their regime of violence is?
Contingent.
Contingent. Now, if they had some compassion for us, they would say, well, goddamn, we're living in a life of luxury. And so what we want to do is help you understand and alleviate a world of gratuitous violence. Instead, they say, you're being isolationist. You're not you don't care about farm workers or immigrants. You know, they do the what if. What about this? What about that? What about that? You know, and then oftentimes our affective generosity kicks in because we don't want to look like we're against suffering people. Well, fuck suffering people. Fuck them and the horse they rode in on. Excuse my language. Because that's essentially, what is this? What is that gesture that Sandra's talking about mean? It means that it's part of what we've been talking about in the afternoon class. So I know some people are in it, but some people are not. It's part of the libidinal economy, the collective unconscious, and there's a refusal in the libidinal economy. And here's a word that's really important. There's a refusal. It's intuitive. It's not even like, some people don't even think of it concretely, but it's just like a knee-jerk refusal to be authorized by black thought. Just to be authorized by black thought. So not only are they part of the, not only are they saying, like, we don't care that you are without sanctuary, because the violence against us is gratuitous. That's what it means to be without sanctuary. When, you know, if I were another kind of father in South Africa, an East Indian father, a white father, an English father, an Afrikaans father, I would be able to say, under certain conditions, Reba, I never seen Reba that way, under certain conditions, I can call upon my institutional linkages to protect you. Even if I can't call upon them right now, there's certain conditions, there's certain contexts in which I can call upon them. A Palestinian father can say that even in exile. What is the condition that he can call upon? When he gets his or her land back. Under that condition, I can protect you from subtler aggression. It dawned on me that there's no way for me to perform fatherhood because I can't call upon institutional linkages that recognize me as a paternal signifier that could then extend sanctuary to her. And that was a hell of a moment, because I was teaching Marxism across the board, which I thought was the limited. You know, it was like, well, goddamn, you know, even after the communist revolution, it's still going to be the case, you know. And I should have known that because I spent some time in the Soviet Union when I was in 11th grade, and I could see how they were financing black revolutions around the world, but treating the Africans that they were bringing in to train as revolutionists really, really well until you wanted to sleep with one of their daughters. You know, I should have known it, but I didn't know that. Okay, so is that helpful, Sandra? Did I not go off on too much?
Yeah, I think it was good.
Okay. All right, so when is that it? No, if it wasn't, tell me. I'll say something.
I always learn more and more.
So here's the thing. This is why these workshops are really important, and why it's good for us to, you know, if I didn't know this when I was undergrad. I mean, I just thought, you know, because I'd been to Berkeley in 1970 and been radicalized and that kind of thing. I just thought everybody, you know, was just trying to go to college to be revolutionaries. No, one cat said to me, it became like the dudes from Harlem over here, and then the alphas over here, and then, you know, and then I don't know how the women were split up, but it was like 350 people like split down the middle with this argument. Like, we don't want to disrupt the 200th anniversary of the United States. And I said, what are we doing this for if not to learn Fanon and learn how to be better revolutionaries? This cat said to me, it was an eye-opener. He says, I want a GS-17 job in a Benz, and I deserve that if I get an Ivy League education. And I thought, okay. So the people that you're talking about can't be educated. This is, I'm sorry, I'm going really fast with a lot of kind of bad news I can see. Are you looking at me with terror or whatever? I don't know what I'm seeing in people's eyes, you know? Okay. When I say they can't be taught, it's not because they can't understand what we're doing in this workshop, it's because that psychically, people cannot take blackness as an authority. Barack Obama found that out the hard way. You can be president, but you can't be presidential. So, and you can't teach someone to respect you or your discourse as an authority because intuitively they're anti-black. Black people don't exist as speaking subjects. And Marx said this, volume on the Capitol, the slave exists as a speaking implement. So at a certain point in time, like my uncle said, you're gonna get your nigger moment, you know, where you run up against the fact that your best friend of another race doesn't see you. Just doesn't see you. And they're not being disingenuous, you know, they're not being mean. They're just intuitively anti-black, because that's the way the world is. Shannon.
Yeah, so in terms, I understand they can't be taught this because of just structural positioning.
Hold for 1 second. Don't forget what you're saying. But the value is we can teach each other.
That's what I'm trying to go towards. Yeah. How do we teach black people that the only way that this will get better for us is for like all these institutions to like blow up? But I don't understand how could we learn this and then still go off to law school? Or like, how do you know, like,
Yeah.
So I'm confused on why I just can't get gasoline and fire, and then why do I need to finish this degree?
Because well, okay, I don't have a good reason. Like Jared Sexton says, there's no good reason for a black person to wake up in the morning. There are reasons, but there's no good reason.
Yeah.
I'm not standing here because I've written books and articles and also have the most, I'm not bullshitting either. The most brilliant grad students, there are 3 phases of this, and you have brought us to the second phase, okay? Agitate, educate, organize. Okay? So this is where we are. It doesn't mean that this goes away. You gotta, you know, you gotta do, it's like you gotta work all the jobs, right? But the agitation has, like they were like this, okay? Now they're like this, okay? And now that they're like this, okay, you don't say, oh, hey, get your balance back.
Knock them down.
Knock them down. Yeah. Yeah. I remember I didn't say that, right? I'm just, so the action, and part of doing, tell me name again? Tariq?
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of what Tariq is saying is that, because if you don't do that, they'll recompose themselves quickly, okay? And that's why this thing has to be not system-wide, and with other, like, I'm so glad that we got people from other colleges and universities, okay? This has got to be a pan-black thing, okay? You don't worry about what is this going to get you. You get 1,000 black students with a strategic rigidity across this country, and that dynamic will surprise you. That dynamic will surprise you. And then you move here. And I need to tell you this, okay? Because you're at the epicenter. You're not like on the periphery, and there's some other people, you know, Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, people doing the real work. You're at the epicenter. Like, you are making this happen at 18, 19, 20, 21. That's the Panthers were, little Bobby Hutton. I mean, you're at the epicenter. And the reason you're at the epicenter is because so many revolutionary movements have come out of universities. Because what is the university? It's the brain trust of an oppressive world. It's the brain. Why I was purged from the African National Congress is because as a professor, I was working with the student organizations for what we called the National Project of Ungovernability, to make all campuses ungovernable. And it was starting to work. So I'm famous. I'm in the London Times as someone who has agitated for ungovernability, and the London Times advises all international investors not to invest in South Africa until Mandela and get the university under control. You take this space and it can't operate. This is the brain trust. This place makes the atom bomb, $6 billion a year from the Department of Defense, okay? Going to UC Berkeley and Lawrence Livermore, okay? And the way it works is that they know that grad students in the STEMs don't want to make atom bombs because they're progressive, right? So they say, here's a question, how to make a hydrogen bomb. They break the question down into like 10 to 20 different science projects. They disaggregate the question, and they shoot it out to the different science departments throughout the UC system, so that they got grad students and professors working on a little piece of a question. They don't even know the grad students don't even know what they're doing. And then they figure out the question, a chemistry question, engineering question, and then they send it back to Berkeley, and they re-aggregate it. So there are people building bombs in these science places, and they don't even know what they're doing, okay? Yeah. What Nick said about gentrification, taking over land where black people live, okay, you upset this space and try to make it ethical, and you can affect change in, you're not a privileged group of people that are not part of the ghetto. I mean, what you do here is going to have a profound effect on blackness everywhere. Okay, so here is, in the last 45 minutes, let's look at some of the reading. And what I'd like us to do, I'd like us to break into 4 groups, and in each group there'll be a grad student to help facilitate some of this. And I want you to come up with like 4 or 5 translated talking points, right? Talking points. What are the 4 or 5 talking points going to do, right? They're going to, it's like you're sitting at the bus stop with a friend, you're trying to get this friend to join the BSU. Yes?
What do you mean by translated?
Okay, so the thing I wrote in second, everybody got that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this guy named, next time we meet, we'll do a little bit more on these readings, but Sexton wrote a piece, and then I wrote a piece, and then there was an exchange between me and an administrator named Parham, which I'll pass out. And
we emailed you.
We don't have that.
No, Carmen emailed you.
It's okay.
Okay, so, okay, we'll adjust. We'll adjust because we don't. Let's do this. The denser piece, we will do the next time we meet. Okay. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to take, go into groups, and by translation I mean, what do you get from what we're going to read in a minute that would allow you to make a bullet point? And the bullet point would say that policing is synchronically unethical, and that policing is diachronically unethical. Okay? Because you can't say that to somebody and expect them to join your revolution. They haven't done all this reading. They haven't, yes, Sally. So is it Jasmine?
Yes.
Is that, am I answering your question? And someone next to you, did you have a question?
Oh, I do.
Did you have a question? No? 3? Okay. So I'm so happy to see so many people here. I think some people are going to share. Let me ask a question. Okay. So let's say that, Carmen, when are we going to do this again, in January?
January 8th.
January 8th. Okay, so for January 8th, can I ask people to do reading over the Christmas break?
If it's on good.
Huh?
If it's on good.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Now, who was that like read me the riot act in the? It was Mia. Yeah, she's not here. Yeah, there's a woman who was the head of the BSU. I sent people, because we do these 10-week things, and normally professors take the first day as just a kind of shopping day. Well, I send out reading before the first day so that I can have a full force class on the first day. And Mia saw me in class, you reminded me, saw me in the grocery store. She said, "What are you sending me this thing out on my break for, to read for the first day?" Oh, you were there. Yeah, it was, you were, you know. All right, okay. So, this will be it. Let's count off by fours. Remember your number, because we're not going to go into groups for 5 minutes. That's 4,
1,
2,
3, 4.
I'm probably not gonna have time to stay for the group. So, did you just want to go to 1 there, or?
Okay.
Yeah.
1. Grad students don't count.
2.
Okay, no, grad students don't count.
Okay, 3.
Oh, in the background.
3.
Oh, you're 4. Okay, now come back to the table.
1.
Who's that? Okay.
2.
3.
4.
2. Okay. So you might have to share this. I know I've been speaking really, really fast. Maybe if people, because so it gets to the back, if people could share. This is going to be a simpler exercise because we've got 40 minutes. But next time we meet, we're going to do some pretty high theory, okay? Because that's what it takes. Does everyone get what I mean? Like this is a conversational text. It's a thing that a guy named Chris Marshburn and an administrator were having an argument about the police, and I joined in. So this is a really simple thing. So now, basically, what you're going to do in your groups, you're going to try and get four points that show that come out of this, and it come anywhere else. Maybe it's not on here. Maybe something from your own class. Historically and synchronically, the arrangement of power and the history making police unethical, and how would you talk about that to someone else? And the next time we meet, we're going to do this on some really, really hard to read stuff, because that's what it takes. The people in Italy are Marxists, but they can mobilize masses of people around high theory into the street because they've got Antonio Negri writing this undecipherable Marxist theory up here, right? Then they've got these people in Venice and Padua and Milan who are like community college teachers, and they're taking all this stuff and they're rewriting it in like other types of articles. Then they've got these other people who are taking that stuff and rewriting it as broadsides. And I saw this like vertical integration of theoretical discourse so that you meet the average activists on the street and they can talk to you about Negrian political theory having not read it. If we can make that model here, where we're able to translate up and down, so that, and in Cuba I saw it, people going out into the country and teaching peasants about imperialism, then really we can use the brain trust of the university against it. All right, let's read this. Chris Marshman has offered us, this is a part of a snippet of an argument. Yes, Jasmine.
I wasn't raising
Okay. Chris Wash has offered us a means of critiquing and theorizing about the police as an institution. This is a structural analysis. It takes place at a level of abstraction that is far more essential to Black lives than the way you have twisted it, making it a question of to simplify without being simplistic a few rotten apples. Okay. So you can write in the marginalia when you think about how you would repackage this stuff for your friend who isn't very political when you're meeting that person at the bus stop. When I talk about a lack of sanity in this proposal for students to meet the police, was precisely this ratcheting down the level of abstraction through which we speak about policing that I had in mind. No one in their right mind would say, for example, we shouldn't be too quick to condemn the mafia because there are some really kind-hearted people in it. But when it comes to thinking about the police, there is unsustainable assumption that A, the institution itself is ethical, and it should be, and B, that the problem is either the way policing is performed and or the character of the individual police officers. Thomas, you mobilize your own encounters with the police, as well as those of your relatives, as a way of establishing the authority of your assertions that follow. The problem with this is that the assertions themselves are just that, assertions. And for an argument cannot be sustained by assertions. What you have is a viewpoint founded upon the authoritative stamp of your age, your rank, and position, and the anecdotal snippets you give us in the beginning. Not enough, my friend, not enough. Not enough for the simple reason that an argument cannot be sustained by assertions and anecdotes. You cannot simply assert that and expect us to believe it because of your age or position at the university, or even that what you have gone through in life. It is incumbent upon you to argue this point, to theorize it, to demonstrate it by way of a methodology that can be assessed along with that which you are asserting. You haven't done this. Nor have you, like Chris and myself, offered black men and women an archive of material that counters the archive that Chris and I are presenting. In short, you're proposing we take your word for it. And my hatred for the police is not based on my bad experiences with them, it is based on my reading of the research that theorizes the police institutionally, diachronically rather. A diachronic interrogation of policing is, in layperson's terms, a historical analysis of the ethics of policing as an institution, not a moral judgment of the behavior of individual cops. That's the biggest thing you're going to be up against, right there, okay? And the research that seeks to theorize the historicity of policing is pretty overwhelming, which is to say that it supports the trajectory of Chris's email, that one cannot disimbricate the slave patrols from the institution of policing any more than one can disimbricate military aggression from the systematic annihilation of the Indians. Furthermore, the analysis that operates through a synchronic lens of interpretation is equally compelling. Articles and books that argue that synchronic relations of power instantiated between blacks and the police is as unethical as the history of policing. For a synchronic analysis of how and why a kind of Polaroid snapshot of policing and power relations has the police coming up short as an institution with ethical standing, one can find many, many articles. Okay, so there's not a lot of meat in this. I intended us to do more in the article that I sent out, but we will do that on January 8th, and I will send out another article to read if you don't mind. So on your own, try to come up with talking points. This is the hardest talking point right here, right here. So maybe today, if you can't think about how the arrangement of power without thinking history makes the police unethical, you can think about the problems we had in our group actually coming up with bullet points. That'll be just as helpful in the long run to coming up with the bullet point itself. Does that make sense?
Can you repeat it one more time?
Okay, so we're short on time, so I'm abbreviating, and we're going to do a lot more of this next time. But the goal was to read aspects of the more theoretical article, translate that down into common speech, and the common speech would have two kinds of orientation. One would be to be able to tell someone who is unlike you, uninitiated, how the police are historically without ethics. Historically without ethics. And we know one, I'll give one away, right? The slave patrols are the modern policing. But the other one is how the police are synchronically without ethics, which is to say, and that's the hardest thing you're up against. So this is where the training comes in. Because people are going to say, look at San Bernardino. What about rape? Black on black crime. You know, and then you're going to be like, okay? You don't have to solve the problem, but you do have to have a response that explains your position. Afia, did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we could have the ones form a circle over here and take about 10 minutes to come up with either talking points or the problems we had with the talking points. The twos back there, the threes over here, and the fours right here, okay? And then if Jasmine, you would come work with the ones. Afia, you can stay there. Nick, you can go back in the corner work with the threes. And Sally worked with the fours. I'm sorry for the abbreviated time, but I think we did a lot of good introductory work which was necessary, and we're set to go for January. I will bring us back to plenary in about 15 minutes, okay? And you can either come up with the answers or say, here are the problems we had with thinking this through. Don't be shy, we don't got much time. Thank you. What's your name again? Sean, okay, thanks, Sean. Good, good. Hi. One's over here, two's at the end of the table there, three's in the corner, and four's right here with Sally. So speed it up, because I'll bring you back in 15 minutes. Hi. Sorry.
I'm glad you have my number too.
Hi.
Yeah.